Welcome. Hello, now that I'm not on mute. We've got quite a few people on today. I've got some questions that I've been sent in to talk about. And I found Canva the other day, and I've been making tiles, and I'm quite enjoying myself because they're bright yellow and the same as my caravan. And there's one that I really like that I found myself repeating last year quite often. So I've got that one to talk about today a little bit, just to try and illuminate the work if I haven't said it already, and I may have done, but it's still interesting. And then we'll go through some questions. And yes, thank you. I'll keep an eye on the Q&A. If you want to put some questions in at all, I'll try and come back and forth a bit just so that I stay on track with you guys. And then if you have been the person that asked the question, you're really welcome to jump in, and I'll do my best. All right. The screen share is not doing what I want, but it will work well enough. So bear with me while I pop this up for you. I've just got to find it. Here we go. It's not looking half as good as I want it to because I can't make it a full screen for some reason. But this is the thing that I wanted to share. And I've also put the questions in this document as well so that you can read them, because sometimes they're quite long. I have shortened them a bit. So this, I'm finding, is such an important thing to say. It's not like no one's ever said it before, ever. And I think somatic practices have their own form of this and the own fashion of this. That said, we're being very, very considerate to the system in terms of really trusting it to know what it wants. So that I was talking with my students this morning, and we were talking about the distinction of when the body says no, it just means no. There's a way in which you just listen, and instead of where we can sometimes with other practices go digging as to the why and to find it and heal it, we're not really trying to do that, and we're not often trying to find the psychological reason for anything. We're trying to make a space so that the body can find its own point of resolution. And if we come in and push and dig, we're doing something else. And it doesn't mean that that isn't sometimes very valuable, but that's not necessarily what I'm trying to do. And so it really matters if, for example, if the body says no, it means no, we just stop and we make some space and we listen and we see what's next, and we might change the subject for a while, and we might go for a walk. We pull back from that point, so we give the body some space to make sense for itself of where it wants to go next. And then we make enough space to offer some things that may be of use, which can be the ball exercise, it can be the points exercise, it can be hanging out, it can be walking down the shop to get a packet of biscuits, to make the person feel safe so that they then have room to think what's next, and the body will think what's next. So it's kind of abstract, but I think it's really important. It speaks to the sophistication of the body. It speaks to the innate knowingness, so that even if it doesn't quite know what it needs next, it's got time to think. And then, if you want to take an octopus metaphor, it's letting the octopus have time to work out what it wants next, to put a little tentacle out and test the water, and to make it make sense. And for me, most of this is not psychological. It isn't psychological. The body has gone into a constricted state for its own good reasons, and it will come out for its own good reasons. And we're trying to make an environment where that's possible. And it looks very different to lots and lots of people. So just checking the Q&A. So following on from that, this is a section of an email I got sent by someone. And it's not an uncommon question, and it's, you know, it's something people have issues with their kids a lot, which is computer work. Excuse me. So the question, you know, really, I need to know if you have any thoughts on him trying to cut down on his computer use. I think maybe then he will start to make progress, i.e. with his therapies, and not with mine. Because we're not working together at this point. But what matters here, before we're doing anything, before we've decided that cutting down on the computer use is a good idea, is to understand what it's for. Often it's where people feel safe. It's where they feel like they know what they're doing. One kid I've worked with recently was talking about his computer, his gaming, in the sense of he can actually register how well he's functioning by how well his reflexes are and how well he can play the game. So there's a lot of self-awareness in this computer use, and a lot of engagement that we might not understand because we're coming at it from another angle and we're seeing what it isn't, and what they're not doing. But also, if it's a safety mechanism and it's hard to do anything else, just focusing on that, to me, isn't really the point at all, you know. And you guys probably understand this quite well in lots of ways, but I think it's worth discussing, because what you want to do is offer an alternative. Like, if we can find time when we can teach the person the ball exercise, if they might find it meaningful, and if they then feel better, they might then start to want to go and do something that isn't just being on the computer. Most people are aware of that they're on the computer too often. They're aware they're not doing anything else. They've just lost the physical and then mental capacity to go and do anything else, 9 times out of 10. And all of us get a bit addicted to our smartphones and things. But there's a way in which that's the key. And I don't think it's the key. I think it's more an outcome. There's a change in that, from the therapies being useful enough, from the therapy actually addressing the issue, as opposed to, are we going to start by curtailing you? Are we going to start by knowing what you need? Are we going to start by making a space that you don't know how to fill? Because if you make someone make a space they don't know how to fill, that just makes them anxious. That just makes them feel like they've failed. So I, with my work, really don't address this issue with the client at all. I don't find it's useful for me to start having an opinion on whether someone uses their computer or not. But what I do see is, if they find my work interesting, if they are willing to give it a try, and if they then start to feel better, they start making different choices, more connected to the real world choices of their own accord. So we want to come in at a level of utmost respect all of the time to the client, the participant, the individual in front of you, to your child, where you've got to have something worth offering them. Because some of me thinks that you'd want to do the therapies if they were good. There's that too, in some respects. It's like, how do you know what's good for you? It feels better. So that's some of my answer. Any questions on that one from anyone before we move on? Okay. This is another question I had from someone. So, a solo mum and her 2 kids, a 6-year-old is likely on the spectrum. He's dyslexic, and I didn't see how he's also likely autistic till now. This was a lot longer. I just cut out the salient points. Mama is at breaking point right now, so they can have no money. So I'm supporting as I can. is there a quick tip you could give me of how I could slowly introduce him to the ball? Or would it be better to try the finger points and forget about the ball with the way he is right now? Or just co-regulate with him through activities he can be quiet for, like building with popsicle sticks together? So I love all the aspects of this question. There's a sensitivity, which I'm going to point out, but there's a sensitivity to all the variables involved in this issue, and a knowledge that you don't know what's right, which is a really good place to start from. Is a really important. First of all, you would have to get permission enough, even if mama's at breaking point, to do anything with her son, regardless, because it's not your child. And I'm pretty sure you know this, but I'm going to say it because I think it's really important. There's a way in which she has to be complicit in it and give permission in it just as much as he does, so that there's informed consent about it, you know, and a realistic, I'm just learning this thing, etc., etc. But it's like, I've got something that might be of use. Do you mind if I try it? It can be that simple, but it has to be above board and stated. The cleaner all this work is, the better. In terms of what you would do, I really like the last bit first, which is co-regulating with him through activities he can be quiet for. Make a friend first, so that you're connecting with him appropriately, especially if mum's not there. It's delicate. It's delicate because you really want to help and you know it can be useful. It's really tricky because there may be trauma and overwhelm that you're going to elicit at the same time. And so I would be very gentle. I think some of me is also wondering whether you could possibly offer it to the mum first, so she understands what this work is, and it may be useful to her. And then if she's got a lot of trauma, it might not be. So again, it's very, very delicate where you want to work this. But if you are going to work with the kid, you could show him the ball and show him the hand points without really any reference to him, and see if it's something he likes. It's hard to say what he's going to respond to best. So I can say, oh, just do the hand points, he'll love it. He might hate it. Some people hate the hand points, which I've said, it makes them uncomfortable. It's deeply overstimulating. And then the ball could be lovely, or neither might be right, and popsicle sticks are just right. So sometimes, even if you're just holding space for people, which you sound like you are, that is offering them a lot, regardless of whether you come in and do any intervention. I lean towards the hand points because someone can easily take their hand away because he's got some choice. But there isn't really a right way to do this. And so, excuse me, so I think your question's really good in that sense. But I like your caution. And then there's a point at which you can just see what happens. Given all those variables, hold all those variables, hold them all in view, and then see what's appropriate. Use your intuition. Feel confident with the things that you want to try. And on any given day, one of them might work, and they might not. So I don't know if that helps, but it's obviously really, really hard to give much advice with this when it's a family removed from you. And it's not like it's not a worthy goal and a worthy impetus, but at the same time you want to be really gentle, which you're clearly being. I'm just going to check my questions. Oh, okay, so thank you, Holly. You've affirmed everything I've been doing beautifully. Good, really appreciate this. Thank you. Yeah, so cool. It's there. It's like, I'm really glad if that's come from doing this work, because you've obviously really understood what I'm trying to get you to understand, and the approach matters. The exercises are neither here nor there. They're great, they're useful, they're tools, but if they're not supported by the correct orientation, then we don't have very much at all. And so edging, pulling back, doing a little bit, getting out of the way, seeing if he likes it, seeing if it's fun, and then I can't help it, bugger off and go play popsicle sticks again, and just leave it and let his body catch up and see. Very often what they'll do is, if you give them a little taste and it's not horrible and it's sort of okay, they'll come back and they'll suggest some more, especially at 6. It's like, oh, I quite liked that. Or you can go in again and try. If you've had a little bit of a break and they've got time to assimilate it, if we're not in a rush, you can often get a lot more, because the sentience of the system, which is what I was saying just prior, the sentience of the system will indicate to you what's next. If it's allowed to communicate with you, it will let you know what's next, given you've shown it your interest and your ability to engage with it at an appropriate level. And so again, if I come back down to this thing, excuse my lack of savvy, it's in here. The body finds its own point of resolution. We've got to learn how to talk to it. And we're not trying to manipulate it. We're not trying to get it into a good place. We're trying to see if we can make some space for it to find its own way. And a 6-year-old body knows how to do that, essentially, if it's given the right conditions, more or less. It's a highly sophisticated system. So it's worth letting that quote really resonate as a truth. And the more that you do this work, the more that you just see it's true. I did some work recently with a young chap. I wrote about it a little bit on Facebook, because we had such a glorious result last week. But we'd only done one set of 3 days last year, and he's a pretty delicate system. So we did that, and we haven't really done anything for, 8 or 9 months or something. But this time it was just right. And the just right isn't that I got it right. The just right is the family are in a different position. Things are different at school. He's older. He's got more desire for things to be different. And probably 9 or 10 other variables realistically that meant that if we held him well, and he also really knew what we were doing, because we'd done it before. And he also knew that I don't push and I don't care what happens, but I care that he's safe. And all of this sort of stuff that we've set up well. I've got a good rapport with the mum, so she's in charge because it's on Zoom, but I'm in charge as well. And everything was just right, so that he chose to, on that last day, do the ball lying down, which is significantly different and more to doing it sitting up. And then he went into a very deep, quiet space, which his mum understands well enough, just wrapped him in a blanket, and he just stayed there in a little cocoon for quite a while, And I'd gone off screen, I could see, but I'd muted and I turned my thing off, so they had privacy, and it wasn't about me, and it wasn't about me overlording it. And they just stayed like that until he was ready. And then he went, oh, I think I'm ready to see Holly again now. Now, he wasn't doing any thinking. He'd taken himself down into a space that he understood well enough at a range of levels. And then he could hold it. And his mum found it very profound, because she says, I know him really well, but I've never experienced this with him before. There was this really quiet space where his body was emanating something new, translating something new, finding its own little space, really quite sweetly wrapped up in a little rug. And then when he was ready, he popped out the other side. And then when he was ready, what he wanted to do was do the ball a couple more times. And so he did. He did it once quite a lot. And for me, what it is coming down into a dorsal state that's safe. So it's shifting from a dorsal state that's immobilized fear to a safe place, which is a big jump for the body. And then, you know, if you want to use, as we do polyvagal language, ventral, popped up a ventral one, because he just popped up the other side. And then he was fantastic and doing karate chop movements all around the room, going, oh my God, I feel like I've got a new body. I've got new skin. I'm a new body and new skin. And he just went, he was so excited, because he said, my body feels better. I can move. I can do all this stuff. So there was this real shift for him. But it proceeded with this very profound, quiet space. And then what I think is happening at a physiological level, although it's not very scientific, is his body's working out he can tiptoe away from the lion. The ball, literally at a movement perspective, is moving. You're mobilizing your legs. And so where the people, you know, so many people I work with, they're very stuck in this immobilized place. But at a certain point, when you get him into that empty zone, neutral, which is a very delicate place that you can't push people into, it comes when it comes. You then, and he wanted to, the mobilizing with the ball pushing allows the body to learn something new. It's sort of gone into this neutral zone, and then the pushing and the movement allows it to tiptoe away from the lion, which is a huge shift in perspective. And he felt totally different. He had a totally different experience of himself. If we just stayed in this quiet thing, it wouldn't have been allowed quite as much, although he may just have popped up anyway, but he actually needed to. He wanted to push, and then he stopped, and then he wanted to do it again, and then he realized it was enough. So most of that process, I didn't have really anything to do with it. I just oversaw it enough. His body knew what he was doing. He'd had enough experience of what this work was to understand enough the body's cleverer than what the brain's thinking. His brain couldn't have thought all of this if he'd tried. If we'd gone and looked at his emotions and how things were going at school and at home, we wouldn't have got there. Even with the somatic work of thinking and feeling, we wouldn't have got there. What we did was we made a space, and his body at a very, very deep level went tinker, 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 and found its own point of resolution, and then popped up the other side. So I'm just sort of laboring that point quite a lot, because it's so profound what we're actually asking of people. And so with this question, I love it, you know, with the 6-year-old, because it's so important to be very, very sacred about what you're doing with this work. Very, very appropriately sacred, and then very light, and then very easy. But you're juxtaposing those two things all of the time, because that affords people a lot of safety and a lot of sanctity. And that's, you know, that's where I find this work's really useful. And it's really, really hard to teach. You know, I can spend 2 years spouting all of this stuff to people, but it has to go in somewhere personally. It has to make sense personally to you, so that it resonates as a truth. It's not an intellectual exercise. We're used to learning things as an intellectual exercise. It's more than intuition what we're doing. It's, you know, it's based in a lot of scientific meaning. It's based in a lot of understanding of well-being and the flight-fight system and everything, even if you don't want to go down the polyvagal road. But at the end of the day, there's a there's a harmonizing with the person as a deeply sophisticated system that has to be done. Because if you as a therapist think you're right and you know everything, the body can't find its own point of resolution. It's working for you. It's outsourcing to you all of the time. And so I loved with this session that I was just describing, because we cut me out, and the mum was confident enough to hold that space. And then it still took her into a space that she wasn't expecting. And that was, it was big. It was beautiful, but it was big. So it's sort of a very potent thing that we're asking people to do. All righty. So this is my last question, and then I'll see if you guys have got any other questions, or I will see what else I can share. So when doing this work on kids who may be on an SSRI, should parents be talking to a doctor about slowly reducing their medication, as their bodies will be switching back on, particularly when you are helping the vestibular system relax? Same with kids on melatonin. Once the body is able to modulate these things better, will kids have increased side effects from medications such as SSRI and melatonin? So the last part of this question first is, I see that a lot. I see that people find they don't need their medication as much. They find they're sleeping without their melatonin. They're finding that the SSRIs aren't working in the same way or as efficiently, or they just don't have the same need for them. But we do that backwards, which is why I like that the end of that one first. I don't ask the parents to talk to the doctor. I like the doctor to be informed that we're doing this work, so they can oversee it from their perspective, and oversee any health issues that are important in reference to doing anything like this. But I don't ask anything of the parents at that point, because I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm not qualified to have an opinion in any fashion. And unless you're a doctor or a psychiatrist, being the same thing, you don't either, in a sense. But so I will watch, and I will observe, but that's pretty well as much as I do. If people ask me, I'll say, probably go and have a chat with your doctor and see what you think. And then often people, if they're in charge of their medication, because I work with a lot of adults of various ages, they seem to very quickly start modifying their medication. That's what I see. But I think they should talk with the parent, with the doctor, but not necessarily as a pre-warning with the work. It also sets the work up kind of interestingly as well, because it can set an outcome that we're not after. It can set pressure on the client, because then we're working against the meds, or we're trying to do this, or we're trying to do that. And in a sense, we're not even trying to help the vestibular system relax. If you want to go that hard, we're trying to see if we can be of any use, and that may include the vestibular system relaxing. It probably will, but there's a way in which we just want to, as I was saying with the 6-year-old question, we want to just go nice and slowly and see what this work can be. So we take our time. We're just dutiful to it in a way that is, again, as I was saying, allowing for the sanctity of the system to know what it's doing. Obviously, medication is of use at points. It's also an imposition on the body. So, generally less is more in that sense, but that's not always available to people. So it's pretty It's individual. It's highly, highly individual. Does anyone have any questions since you're there? That's my last question. We've got about half an hour to go, so I should have got more questions. But is there anything that's kind of resonated or kicked in there with anything that I've said? Or anyone that's here that has any other kind of question that you would like answered? And if there isn't, since you've done the course, do you want to maybe someone let me know one of the more interesting things about the course, or something that you've really learned that's been valuable for you in that sense? Let me see. No. Okay. Let me ponder then what I can share with you today. If I think too hard, I won't be able to think of anything. Goody. There's two things. Okay, so it's organic. You realize when you don't need the meds. I took Dex today. The anxiety came back. Just an observation to that question. Same with not needing glasses. The body knows. Don't know if that helps. It's actually really interesting. Thanks, Miranda. For lots of reasons. One of them is the fluidity of the system, especially when it's going through change. Like, you know, we have all of these different states, and they're never completely fixed into one state or the other either, but we have a sort of a choreography that we work with, and then this work can change that choreography and give us strength. But people may still really need their meds on certain days, use them less than others, as Miranda's suggesting. And so there's that kind of fluidity of understanding as well. It's being very responsive to the body and responsive to who you are on any given day and what you need on any given day. And so there's not this hard and fast. Well, I like it because there's quite a lot of autonomy. Obviously, you're an adult, of watching what's true for you as well. So, you know, you can't do the same with kids in so much. I mean, the parents can, but there's something about being highly responsive to people's needs on a daily basis that I think is interesting. And I think it's the same with your vision. Like, you know, 4 of the cranial nerves are eyes. The software works less well at different times. We're constantly morphing into different states, and so sometimes you might need your glasses more, sometimes you won't. And so it's just nice in that sense, because, you know, and I often use this this metaphor, and Miranda knows this one nicely, of a sapling. And what we're trying to do, you know, I like to see the vagus nerve as a sapling, but just crouching tiger, hidden dragon, if I haven't said it before, just this strength of being able to mobilize in the breeze and be grounded and then connected. And so there's a capacity for movement and flow, which is what a body's supposed to be able to do. It's not nice when it's stuck in one direction. And so that robustness moves up and down as well. You know, and some people have delicate systems, and we get them more robust, but some days aren't, and some days are fantastic. And so we're always modifying in that sense as well. I think that's a really good point. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm trying to think. It's interesting talking to a group and not. It's lovely to have some feedback. Thank you for that. It was very important, and the questions that people sent in. When you're co-regulating with people, it's easier to have things pop into your head to ruminate on and share. So I'm trying to think of something regardless that's of use in the context of all of this for the rest of this session. It's obviously easier if people chip in. And I've just done a very long 2.5-hour session with my therapist students, which was really interesting. So we went a bit longer than expected. So I've kind of got a lot of that in my head. So I'm even trying to think if I can share some of that with you in a sense. But I'd rather focus. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Hi, Holly. Our 11-year-old son went through a period of having non-epileptic seizures that could last all day. We're looking at asking the pediatrician to consider a diagnosis of PNED. Although he hasn't had any seizures for over a month, we are always very mindful of our words and actions and of the preceding day's events. We are always stepping on eggshells. Everything has been affected. We have had years of OT and speech. The bottom line is that he is desperately lonely and wants a friend or two. At times, our son seeks pressure and absolutely adores when I give him a back, foot, or hand massage, but I am aware that I need to tread gently. I am so keen to be able to try to help him and our family. All of our advice is most welcome, appreciated. Have you done the hand points with him at all, Sarah? I'm kind of curious because I've worked with some people with epilepsy now, and it's 3 of different ages. And I've found it fascinating because the more I learn about it, the more I think that it's very much a gut reaction that then becomes a brain reaction. And so settling the body allows it to become more. Okay, great. Integrated, perhaps less trigger happy. So I've worked with a 20-something-year-old quite some years ago with autism and epilepsy, and she ended up changing in lots of ways, but one of them was she rarely had any fits, and hers were biggish. And then another girl I worked with would have her mum would say if they were in the sun, she'd have like 24 little minor ones, all over the course of the day, like just constant ones, and they stopped completely. And then another lady I'm working with intellectual disability who's 40 also has epilepsy, and hers have mostly gone now. And so she's still on medication. The second one I was talking about came off medication, and I can't remember the other one. I think the other one significantly reduced medication, and I didn't have anything to do with any of the medication aspects. It was just watching. But with the first lady, we did hand points mostly, and she found it fascinating because she had such different responses to the hands, and some she hated, some were fine, and then that interested her because she thought the work was pretty stupid. But then she was like, that's quite interesting. And then we ended up doing the ball. So we graded her to the ball, sitting up, not lying down. I wouldn't do that with someone with epilepsy. So, once you've gone through the module, you just can really see if he likes that kind of pressure in different ways. It is different pressure. It's asking something slightly different of the body, because what you're actually asking it to do is notice something. And actually, it can be deeply relaxing. It also can be intrusive. And so there's a bit of both going on there if you're asking it to learn something new. But the second girl, we can only do points. And it's really a lot for her to even do a full session. She gets very overwhelmed and very, very tired. So the whole system's just on the whole time. But afterwards, there's just this huge relief that lasts for, for ages and ages and ages. And then the other lady I've been seeing, she does all of my exercises now really easily. So, and there's been a lot of change. So it's, I guess if you're going, we're always mindful of our words and actions and everything, that's the tricky thing, because what you want to do is get to the point where the system's stronger, like a nice little sapling, so that it can take the emotional hits, not massive ones, but just little disappointments and things, and not be knocked over, because especially with epilepsy, it just has this chain reaction. So I don't know if that's of any use, except I've sort of described there. The only other epilepsy thing, excuse me, that I've noticed is I had a lady in a workshop, and I think I talk about this in the course, but all she did was put her head to the side in the course, and she started to have she didn't have a fit or anything, but her body started to go into that space. And I found it fascinating that just this had done it, in the context of the course. So it's sort of supporting the body to go into that space, I think. But she felt fantastic the next day and bounded in going, oh my God, this is fantastic. I've been running up and down the stairs. Like it's like the hold that the gut has, and the need for it to stay in that constricted state to stay safe, opened it. When it opened, it sends a tremor of, goodness, this is a bit of a worry, that can get picked up as for a person with a tricky epileptic kind of system, trigger it a little. But if it's not too much, it settles back down, but then it doesn't quite go back to the same shape. So this is my not very scientific way of looking at it, but it feels very valid, and I watch it, and so you can be talking about the vagus nerve and the gut, etc. But it's got its own self-awareness and knowledge, and it only knows this, and then it opens a little and it can know a bit more. And there's just this way that you can get this strengthening and this knowingness in the system, which again, you just go nice and slow, see if he likes it, see if he hates it, see what he resonates with. And he's probably very aware that his body's pretty trigger happy. So he'll tell you as well if it's not nice for him. It's that sort of thing. Excuse me. All right. Anything else? And hello, Andrea, and say hi to Bonnie for me. I probably shouldn't do that. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. My pleasure. Easy. What do you need? This is what I'll do in a session. I will not always have all the answers. I don't always do all the talking. I will sit back and see what's needed. You don't know. So like, it's kind of weird doing this in this responsive way when I can't see you, but you're there. And there's obviously other people going to be watching this later, but you're still trying to hold your attention to more variables than you think, and know you don't know everything. And so we're so used to, people do this with my exercises all the time. They just get them and run with them. I go, right, we're going to do that. And they just apply this, very tight model that we've all learned from school with it. And if you do that, you're so hyper focused on getting it right and all of the things that we've learned how to do, that you miss all of these variables that are going to make it work. And those variables are vast. You've got, if you're a therapist doing this, you've got potentially the mum in the room, the kid in the room, possibly the father in the room. I generally make sure one of them leaves at a certain point once we've set it up and we know what we're doing, so that it doesn't become a spectator sport. Even with one of them in the room, you've got whatever happened for them that day, whatever's happening for them during the week, their anxiety about it working, the mums, the kids' anxiety about getting it right or not being naughty or wanting to be naughty, or, you know, just all this aspects of what's happening that's got nothing to do with the exercises. And if you try and control any of that, you've lost. So, you know, I can have parents and they'll go, oh, they'll do it, I'll make sure they'll do it. And it's like, well, you can, and you can make them comply, but then we've just been very, very narrow focused again, and we haven't got what we need. We found, you know, with a client recently, there was a very good reason why he didn't want to do something. And it wasn't until we listened and really understood it that there was a whole lot of associations he had with it that no one would have guessed in a million years. So once he had room to ask the question, because he was safe, because nothing's stupid, that because his intellect and his safety are paramount, he was okay to say, is this what's happening? Is this what it's for? And then I get to go, oh, well, that's very interesting. Thank you. No, blah, blah, blah. This is what I think I'm doing. This is what I think this is. And because he'd associated it with something completely different, the aversion was there. So where you could read it as willfully not wanting to do it, willfully not participating, it had nothing to do with that. There actually was a level of interest. And then what we used it for was a progression for the work, because then he's actually more engaged. He's been heard. He's been responded to politely. He's been respected. And then there's an interest in, well, I wonder what it is then. I wonder what that's going to be like. We're driving curiosity all of the time, but you can't be curious if you're disrespected at the same time. They just don't go together at all. So there's this constant way in which the emotional, relational, social environment in the room matters, and it matters at least as much as what we're doing with the exercises, but you need both. So then if you're working with your kids, I think it's sometimes harder to get that right, but not always. You just have to be, there's so many setups in relationships already that make it difficult. So you need to be very mindful to be a good waitress, and to offer something, step back, not be sure that you've got it right, or that you know what it is, or that it will, you know, if we just did this, then it will be okay. It's like there's usually more going on. There's usually far more going on than that. So learning to listen really, really matters. Hugely. Hugely. All righty. We've got about 8 minutes left. Has anyone got anything along those lines that they are interested in understanding a bit more? One thing I was saying today to my students was just how much this work is a level of inquiry about being a human in a body. And so where we can maintain that, your body will change over your lifespan. It informs you more. You get to know it. It's a lifelong pursuit, getting to know your body. When you take that level of inquiry, it's really different to, I'm just trying to relax myself now, or, I'm trying to get this outcome, so XYZ. We can have very subtle forms of dominating the body, instead of very intricate and ongoing understanding and relationship of what it is, what it wants, what it needs, how it will work for us if we give it that level of attention and kindness. And I, you know, I think it's one of the best bits of this work is teaching people this. I think it's where we get the most results. And as I often say, it is the hardest thing to teach. And people will think they've got it, and they will revert so quickly back to getting the exercises right, making sure they do 3 rounds on the ball, because that's what I said in a video 7 years ago. And this is not that anyone does anything wrong. It's people want to get it right. They don't want to do it wrong. They want to, you know, there's a lot of good desire there. But what we want to put in as well is this other thing that is about holding space, holding kindness, holding variables, of which there are so many, which is what you end up calling intuition. But intuition is really, I can hold 25 million variables in my head at the same time and compute them and then make a decision. That's pretty well what it is at very, very subtle levels of instinct and sensation and awareness and vision and, you know, working memory, all sorts of things involved in it all. But when you can find that place for yourself, when you're working with someone, especially with someone who is used to being bossed around, denigrated, self-abnegating, even if other people aren't, people know better for them, people know what they want, people have great desires for them, even if they're well-meaning, they're still wanting something because there's a perceived deficiency. And often just a deep desire for the well-being of your loved ones. All of that is true, and they're all variables. But we want to step outside of all of that and find an even cleaner space that is allows us to attend to the person simply in that moment, with doing these exercises. And so then you weirdly bring it into, within all of that, for me, like a martial arts metaphor. You're teaching the body something. You're teaching the body how to be in this place. It's internal martial arts. Can your body do this? Can it handle it? Can it improve? Can it tolerate more? And you get that swing where it's rigid. It starts a little swing, and the swing gets bigger, and in the end you get a little sapling that starts to actually know what it's doing and hold its line. And then you see glorious things happening. And, you know, people who are on here now send me fantastic photos of their kids doing things that they didn't think would happen. And it's really cool. It's really exciting. But it only happens because we've found some grace, and we've sidestepped a lot of rhetoric in all sorts of ways. And I'll, you know, shall I do that? Yeah, I've got 4 minutes. Some of the rhetoric is behavioral rhetoric and 100 years of training and all the stuff that we learn in the course. Some of the rhetoric to me now, you know, from where I work as a therapist, and I know a lot of you come up against this, is I'm fine just as I am. Someone did a meme the other day on Facebook, you know, and I don't know if it had any relation to my book because of how I've labeled the front of the book now, I think, and it may not have done, but it was still, autism has no symptoms, something like that. Like, you know, it was like an affront to say that there's symptoms involved. It's simply neurodiversity. And I can't hold that well, personally. It's not that there isn't a whole lot of wealth of fantasticness. And it's so hard to get this right. People don't come and see me because they're feeling great. They come and see me because they can't do a whole lot of things, and they're really constricted in who they can be, and their body shuts down. And I think we have to be allowed to talk about that and have to have that meaningful, because if it's not a meaningful part of the story, how do you address it and how do you look after people? How do you say, actually, you're just fine the way you are, off you go? you know, it's the world's fault. That's that. And you can have, you know, quite a number of people being very considerate and thoughtful, but the world's still very hard to navigate because your eyeballs aren't chatting to the rest of your brain properly, and your hand-eye coordination's not complicit in all of this, and the choreography is a bit out of kilter. And that doesn't have to just be autism, but there's a way in which that level of rhetoric also, I think, alienates people from getting well. And then if I even say the word well, I'm in trouble. But there is a level of well-being that we can improve. There are ways in which the body will shut down and make life unmanageable. And there are ways to help strengthen, make the system more robust so that the person has more choice. Whether they're on the spectrum or that, you know, ADHD stuff, intellectual disability, or a range of other issues as well. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a bugbear at the moment. I think I keep coming up against it because I so love so much of the stuff that's happening in the disability sector. There's so many things, you know. I watched something last night, the guy in the UK, Johnny Drury, who's doing some beautiful work around dialogue, and, you know, it's very heartfelt listening so that you change the space. That's beautiful work. There's some lovely stuff, but when we start negating people's actual issues and what they're actually coping with and not coping with, where I think we're doing them a disservice as well. So you want to, I wrap back up to where I was talking before I finish, you want to get all of that stuff out of the way. It's like all of it can be true somewhere else. Go and have that argument somewhere else. For this space, let's make a nice circle, keep it clean, and then see what we can do for the individual in front of us who is suffering in their own way. And the whys and the wherefores and the who's and the hows, it's not my business in that sense, unless there's something I can directly do to help. But usually people feeling better in their bodies, their vestibular system, chatting to their eyeballs better, moving around in time and space, having better access to your working memory, having better access to your executive functioning when you might not have for the whole of your life, is cool. It's just cool. But we have to do it with kindness. And then to finish, we have to bring back in all that stuff I was just negating, and we need it so that we stop ourselves going down all the other roads. So it's a very delicate space to be working in with this stuff. I find it's very delicate, but if we get it right, it's very good. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening. I hope it was interesting. Please send me any questions that you've got, and I'll see you soon, but I'm not sure exactly when, in about 6 weeks. All right. Cheers. See ya.